Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. I am Brian Nemhauser. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram and other places at Hawk Blogger. It is a Thursday of the Seahawks bye week, and you know, we got a little space to get comfortable and figure out how we want to use our time. And how I decided I wanted to use time this morning was, first of all, obviously hanging out with all of you. So good morning to everybody out there. Good morning to Marcelo. Good morning to William. Good morning to O'Dwyer. Good morning to all of the folks who have tuned in and are members, supporting the show, supporting the cause. Appreciate you. I think we were having a conversation on Real Hawk Talk last night that kind of piqued my interest, and I wanted to dive a little deeper, which was, sure, the Seahawks could go on a run and win some games, and I think winning games is always really important no matter what. But I don't think that there's a certain amount of wins that will equal success the rest of the year and a certain amount of losses that will mean failure. I don't think it's that simple for this team. This was never a year where the Seahawks were all in for a Super Bowl. Like that's not where they are as a roster. They've got a lot of young players. They're building towards something. And while it would be nice for them to win more games than they have and make fewer mistakes than they have, I think there's other aspects that are really important for really getting an idea of if the arrow's pointing up for this franchise, whether it's pointing down, or whether it's just status quo. And two of those three options are not good. So the focus of this show is going to be, who are the 10 most important players that are going to help decide with their play the last half of this year whether the Seahawks are actually building towards something interesting. And normally I would take some time and actually break down how I'd come to this list and what the rankings would be. I'll explain a little bit of stuff that I did there, but I thought we'd kind of have an open conversation. So chat, if you're active today, we'll talk together. Otherwise, I will just share my thought process as we kind of go through it, and we'll see where we end up. I don't know right now exactly what that list will be, but I'll tell you right off the jump who are some of the folks that are in contention for the most important, and then we'll talk about some of the logic for why those guys are the most important. Before we do all that, I want to make a really exciting announcement. The partnership that I've been doing with JK Boots, we just yesterday agreed that we're going to continue it through the rest of the year. This was not something we were sure we were going to keep going, but the reception's been amazing. We've accomplished a ton together as a community. And right now, we are like 4 more boot sales away from giving away another pair of boots to someone in the Wildland Firefighters Foundation. So a firefighter can have a pair of boots that will protect them while they're protecting our forests and keeping the Northwest beautiful. So again, if you don't know JK Boots, Spokane-based company, family-owned, really cool story. Check out their YouTube channel. Lots of amazing stuff. If you're into leather and leather making, they have all the details there. But if you use code HawkBlogger, you get 10% off your entire order. You'll get entered to win a pair of Seahawks themed boots. I got to look at those yesterday. They're coming along. I'll be able to share those so people can see pictures of those soon. And again, when we get 4 more sales, we are going to donate our second pair of boots to the Wildland Firefighters Foundation, and we're going to keep going beyond that. So we've got some really cool stuff in store, and I want to thank everybody who's participated. Hopefully you feel very excited. These are amazing handmade boots that take weeks to make, and so you can get 10% off using code HawkBlogger. Not just the boots, you can get belts, you can get other leather goods that they make there, and you get entered to a chance to win the Seahawks themed boots, and you help contribute towards Wildland Firefighters Foundation, another firefighter getting a pair of boots. So love this promo. I love this company and really excited to continue working with them. So take advantage if you have not already. Okay, let's talk about who is the most important, who are the 10 most important players for the Seahawks. We'll decide if we rank them 1 to 10 after we get our 10 listed, but let's start going through this list. I look at the Seahawks roster, And the kind of attributes that matter most to me in deciding this are, one, how important is the position that they play? Two, how old are they? Are they a younger player? Are they an older player? Can they be part of a future with this team, at least over the next 3 years? Three, how many years are left on their contract? Are they under club control? Are they about to expire? Those things matter. And I think four would probably be, have they already shown some level of upside where they've made a Pro Bowl, or they've got the potential to, like, they've demonstrated the potential to play at that level or higher. All right. So with that in mind, I think I've got a list of 14 guys. And so let me list the 14 guys that I've got, and then we'll figure out how to whittle them down to 10. And I want to know, as I list these players, first of all, feel free to throw it out in chat, comments on the video, what's your list of guys that you'd even consider for this on the Seahawks? Who makes that list for you? And here are the guys that come up for me, and I'm going to do them. Well, I'll list them out for you, and then I'll tell you some of the criteria, like where they fit in the criteria. So, Byron Murphy on the list, certainly an important player. Jackson Smith-Njigba on the list. Derek Hall, Devin Witherspoon, Kenneth Walker III, Charles Cross, Reek Woolen, Ernest Jones, Julian Love, Abe Lucas, Boye Mafe, DK Metcalf, Connor Williams, might be a surprise, and Geno Smith. Those are 14 players I've got listed here. And I'm curious if there's anyone that you think I'm missing. I'll tell you some names that I thought about, but I didn't quite put them on there. Kobe Bryant was a guy I almost put on there because, there's a chance that he steps forward and becomes an important part of the roster build. I could have put Roy Robertson Harris on there. Thought about that briefly. I could put Draymond Jones on there. The reason I didn't put Roy Robertson Harris on there, I don't think he's going to be this key part of the foundation. I just don't see it. I'm actually excited he's on the team, but I'm not sure there's something he could do in the second half where I'm like, this guy's foundational. Draymond Jones, I just think we've seen enough. I'm not sure he's going to be a guy that's going to grow into a foundational piece. If he did have some just jaw-dropping second half of the season, that would be a huge deal. But I guess I'm skeptical enough that it just didn't make the cut for me. I could have put AJ Barner on this list. Rookie, having a strong year as a tight end. Ultimately, I'm not sure I see the combination of positional value and talent to be one of the 10 most important players for the Seahawks over the second half of the season. Other guys, I guess, I could have put Christian Haynes, but I don't think he's going to probably get enough time for that to matter. I think those were the main guys that maybe, I could have put on here that I did not. Let me know in chat if there's anyone you think I'm missing before we start whittling down this list. So I think we're doing good there. So we've got a list of 14 players. We got to get it down to 10. And let me tell you where these guys rank on the various criteria that we talked about. So Byron Murphy and Jackson Smith-Njigba are 22 years old. I think people forget just how young those two players are. Derek Hall is 23 years old. Devin Witherspoon, Kenneth Walker, Charles Cross are all 24. So that is right there, 6 players that are under the age of 25. All right. And I think that's a pretty good bet that all of those guys have reason to be on this list, but we'll keep looking. Reek Woolen and Ernest Jones are 25. I think, again, people forget how young Ernest Jones is. Julian Love, Abe Lucas, and Boye Mafe are 26. People forget a little bit that Boye Mafe is a little bit older. DK Metcalf and Connor Williams are 27. I think most people don't remember that Connor Williams is still pretty young. 27 is, a baby for offensive line years, essentially. And then Geno Smith is 34. So he's the outlier. He's the old man in this list. Why is he still on it? Because his positional value is the highest of any. And I think that if I talk about Geno Smith, if Geno Smith has the same second half of the year that he had the first half of the year in terms of being prolific passing the ball, but he cuts down the interceptions and increases the touchdowns, then you're talking about a guy that's going to be like really one of the best quarterbacks in the game this year. I think there is a realistic chance that that happens. And so I do think he belongs on the list. I think you have to make some really important decisions about that position. And so in that case, it's not just about the player, it's about the position. And I think you got to consider how important is it? What kind of decision do the Seahawks have to make? How critical is that to their roster building? And whether or not that player plays well or not in the second half of the year, how much that's going to be important to deciding how the Seahawks shape their roster from here on out. So with that in mind, let's go over to say, like, how many years left do these guys have on their contracts? So a little bit of an asterisk with some of these first round picks. So Byron Murphy has 3 years technically left on his rookie deal. This is his first year. He'll have 3 more years after that. But you've got a 5th year option. So I'm going to go ahead and include the 5th year option as at least the concept of club control. Whether or not they pick it up, the Seahawks rarely do, but whether or not they pick it up is, an option that they have later on. So I'm going to include that here. Byron Murphy then has 4 years left under club control, is the way I'm going to kind of think about that. Similarly, Jackson Smith-Njigba, who was drafted a year earlier, has 3 years left of club control, as does Devin Witherspoon and Julian Love. Sorry, let me make sure on Julian Love that I got the right contract there. 1 second. I know he just extended, so I think I just dropped that in there without verifying. Yes, he does have 3 years left. I got it right. Hey, spending hours and hours on Seahawks pays off sometimes. All right, so Julian Love, JSN, Devin Witherspoon all have 3 years left under club control. Derek Hall and Charles Cross are 2 years left. Now, Derek Hall was drafted a year after Charles Cross, but Charles Cross has the 5th year option. Now, I was trying to figure out exactly when the deadline is. I think it's in May that they can decide whether or not they're going to pick up the 5th year option on Charles Cross. So I think they still have the choice to make there. But for now, I'm listing him as having 2 years left of club control should the team want to pick up that 5th year option. And then guys that have 1 year left, meaning they have the 2025 year under contract, under club control: Kenneth Walker, Reek Woolen, Abe Lucas, Boye Mafe, DK Metcalf, and Geno Smith. And let me just double check things for this to make sure I've got that right. Let me double check on Abe Lucas, for example. I'm pretty sure I've got that right, but let's just be sure. Yes, Abe Lucas has just 1 year left on his contract. And then other guys I have, and we know DK Metcalf's in that list. Reek Woolen is on that list. Let me make sure. Yep. Reek Woolen's on that list. And then who else did I have? Kenneth Walker, yes. And Boye Mafe. Yes. All right. So I got all those correct as far as I can tell. So the guys that have no years left, that their contract ends after this season, are Ernest Jones and Connor Williams. So I think those all factor in to deciding whether or not a player belongs on the top 10 list or not. And I think where, I'll throw in some things that may or may not be of interest to you, but guys that have made the Pro Bowl so far. Devin Witherspoon has made a Pro Bowl. Reek Woolen has made a Pro Bowl. Julian Love has made a Pro Bowl. DK Metcalf and Geno Smith have all made Pro Bowls. So that's 5 guys out of this list of 14. So when I go through and I look at positional value, that's the other thing I would kind of throw in there. I talked about Geno Smith having the highest positional value. I think Charles Cross at left tackle is right behind, quarterback in that regard. You can kind of debate on some of these others, but wide receiver, defensive tackle, those guys are getting around 30 million plus at this point. So the best of the best. So I think wide receivers, JSN, DK Metcalf, and then Byron Murphy at a defensive tackle spot. I think those guys are all kind of next tier. I would put Abe Lucas like right tackle in a similar tier. I would put cornerback in a similar tier. So you've got edge rusher. So you've got a lot of these guys that are in high value positions. I would argue that Byron Murphy, JSN, Derek Hall, Devin Witherspoon, Charles Cross, Abe Lucas, Boye Mafe, DK Metcalf, are all in high value positions. And then you've got like Geno Smith in the highest value position. And then you've got a few guys in what are lower relative value positions. Kenneth Walker at running back, lower value position. Julian Love at safety, lower value position. Connor Williams at center, lower value position. So those are some of the guys that are lower value. I would put Ernest Jones at inside linebacker. That could be low. I'm going to put him at medium value, but that's roughly where I got him a little bit like inside linebacker, a little bit higher value than, let's say, safety at this point. So I look at these guys, and there's some just no-brainers, right? I think there's some that we don't have to spend a lot of time debating. They just are on this list. If they play well the second half of this year, or they play poorly the second half of this year, it's going to matter. It's just critical to the future of this team. So I think you got to start with Byron Murphy. I think foundationally, first-round pick, defensive tackle, 22 years old, becoming one of the highest value positions on the field. For me, Byron Murphy has to be on this list. And he's a guy that if he even has one game in the second half of the year where he takes over and is unblockable, it is a massive, massive change to the projection for this team. If he has a second half of the year where he builds towards something, like you can just see he starts to get it. It clicks for him. He starts to make more and more impact. That would be huge. And so we need to see some sacks, ideally, from him. We definitely need to see some more tackles for loss and just disruption. I think he's off to a good start. He obviously had the injuries that held him back for a few weeks, but I think that him having a really strong back half of this year, he's one of the 10 most important Seahawks. I don't think that's even in question. The next guy that I would put on this list that's really just not a debate to me, and I think other people will argue it, but I'm going to tell you, it's not a debate to me. Abe Lucas is on this list. Now, we don't know exactly when he is going to come back, but there's no denying that how Abe Lucas performs, or if he performs, depending on your perspective on his injury, is just absolutely crucial to the roster construction for this team. You are going to find out whether or not he's your answer at right tackle, whether or not you're going to have to go back to the well and draft again at that position, whether or not he is going to be able to be a not just physically reliable player, but a plus player on the field. I think I could argue there might not be a more important player the second half of this year than Abe Lucas, because everyone assumes that it's going to be that he's not going to come back, or that when he comes back, he's going to get injured again, or he's going to come back and he's not going to be very good. All of those things are plausible. It's not like I've got blinders on. But if he comes back and he plays well and he looks like a difference maker, and you've got Charles Cross, who's already established himself this year as taking a big step forward, and you've got Abe Lucas, then you've got the foundation of an interesting offensive line for the first time in what seems like ever. So that might not be the most likely, but it absolutely is a possibility. And I think his performance the rest of the year may well be the most important player from a trajectory standpoint and prognostication standpoint about this roster across the whole group. So I'm putting Abe Lucas on this list. The next person that to me is just a no-brainer, I'm putting Geno Smith on this list. And this is a controversial one. To me, it's a no-brainer. I would bet that for others, they would not say it's a no-brainer. And let's see if after I pick the 10, whether I'm like, oh man, I cannot let this guy off the list. So I'm going to give you my initial 10. It might change after we do it, because like I said, I'm doing this with you all in real time. The reason for me Geno Smith is a no-brainer on this list is you got some decisions to make on quarterback, and he is going to be entering the last year of his deal, and he's going to want an extension. You've traded for Sam Howell. You've got to decide whether or not you're going to give him snaps, whether you think he can be the quarterback of the future. You've got to decide whether you're going to make quarterback the most important position for you to draft next year. Like, there's all sorts of decisions that hinge on Geno Smith. Now, I'm of the mind that Geno Smith could have a second half of the season where he changes the Seahawks' plans, either in the positive or in the negative. And when you're having a decision to make at the most important position on the field, that guy just absolutely is going to be one of your 10 most important players the last half of the year. And one of the things that's cool is he is going to get an opportunity to do something that he really, has not established himself as being capable of yet, which is play really big against really key opponents in big spots. It starts right after the bye. He has not played well against the 49ers ever. Like, the best he played against the 49ers was the first half of the playoff game 2 years ago. He did play well in that, and then in the fourth quarter, things unraveled. If he played a lights-out game against the 49ers, that's a big deal after the bye. He is going to get chances to play against the Arizona Cardinals, who are the division leaders. That's not as big of a deal, but it's certainly going to be coming against Kyler Murray and a defense that's started to play a little bit better. He's going to get a chance to go to New York to play the Jets, his former team. That's a big opportunity against Aaron Rodgers. Can he outperform Aaron Rodgers? He's going to get a chance to face the Green Bay Packers at home on Sunday Night Football. That's going to be his last kind of prime time opportunity the rest of the year to kind of make his case that he can play big in those moments. He's going to get to play the Minnesota Vikings at home. He's going to get to travel to Chicago. So that's another primetime game. Thursday night against Caleb Williams. He's going to get a lot of opportunities to change the narrative. Now, you might just say, like, he's not gonna. He's just going to be Geno Smith. He's going to throw his interceptions. He's going to have big plays. And we're going to have the same opinion of Geno Smith at the end of the year that we have of him right now. That might be the most likely outcome. But the fact of the matter for me is that if he jumps and plays, if he increases his performance level, that is meaningful. If he doesn't, that is also meaningful. So that is why for me, Geno Smith is a no-brainer on this list. I think he's a key part of decisions that have to be made the rest of the way. Who else is a no-brainer the rest of the year? I would say, I don't know if anyone else to me is a no-brainer. I think I'll put Devin Witherspoon in that bucket. And the reason I'll put Devin Witherspoon in that bucket, he's got 3 years of club control. It's not like you got any decisions you're going to make, but you need Devin Witherspoon to take a step forward. I thought he had a really nice game against the Rams, one of his most impactful games. He has got to be a guy that makes plays. He has got to be a playmaker in this defense. And that has not come to life as much this year. I thought we would see 6 or 7 sacks from him this season. I thought we would see, 3 to 5 interceptions and big hits and fumbles forced and run stuffs. All these things just has not happened yet for him in this defense. And so I think he's a big one to watch, and him stepping forward, I think really certainly is one of the most important players the rest of the year. The other guy that I have pretty close to that is Ernest Jones. This is a guy you traded a 4th round pick for. You have no club control. You have to decide whether or not you are going to extend this guy. He's 25 years old. He could be your guy in the middle of your defense for years to come. You have to decide whether this guy is a foundational piece or not. He's not going to be super cheap, but I think he could be a really key part of this team. And so that's a guy that, for me, is one of the 10 most important players the second half of this year to kind of figure out what you have in him. Who else? Who else for you? Like, so far, recapping, we've got Byron Murphy, Devin Witherspoon, Ernest Jones, Abe Lucas, and Geno Smith as 5, we're halfway through, 5 of the 10 most important players for the Seahawks the rest of this year. I think from here, we got to go into a little bit about contract and positional value, like club control and positional value. So I think DK Metcalf is a guy that you've got to make a decision about the rest of this year. And so he's got 1 more year on his contract. He's going to command a significant chunk of change. His position value is high. What he does the rest of the year, again, similar to Geno Smith, like DK Metcalf has not always stepped up against the best competition. He did not play well against the 49ers. He has shrunk against that team. Can he come back after the bye and change the narrative that he is a guy that can be a blue chip player? He can be one of the best players on the field when there's already elite competition. Haven't seen that as much. I think you got to see that. And if not, there's a chance that you're going to look at trading DK Metcalf this offseason. I don't think it's the most likely outcome, but I think there's a possibility where you have to consider it. So I think that's where DK Metcalf makes this list. He is the 6th person on the list for me. Let me check in with chat here, see what you guys have. Yep. Glad folks are enjoying the topic today. I think it's an important one we're all kind of thinking about. Um, and then let's keep going. If you haven't already given the show a like and click subscribe, please do. Also, please go over to jkboots.com, use code HawkBlogger, get 10% off your order. We are just 4 sales away from giving away a second pair of boots to a Wildland Firefighters Foundation. So a firefighter can fight forest fires for the Pacific Northwest, keep it beautiful, and keep us safe. So do that. You also there's still a chance. There's going to be a couple more weeks before we give away a pair of Seahawks themed boots to one person, only person in the world that will have these Seahawks themed boots custom made for your feet. So, but you got to order with code HawkBlogger. We just need 4 more sales to give another pair away to the Wildland Firefighters Foundation. All right. So we've got 6 guys. Byron Murphy, Devin Witherspoon, Ernest Jones, Abe Lucas, DK Metcalf, and Geno Smith. I'm going to throw another guy on here that may be controversial to some, but to me, I think it's key, and his name's Connor Williams. You're going to have a decision to make about Connor Williams. He is a free agent after this season. He is 27 years old. He is coming off an injury. He's played in every game this year. He has struggled with snapping the ball. He has not been nearly as bad of a center as some people are implying. He has had his tough moments, but Connor Williams has overall been a step up at the center position, and I don't think it's been close. I think he has the potential to finish this season stronger. There's also a chance that we see Connor Williams move to guard. I think there's a chance. I don't think it's likely, but I think there's a chance. And so his play the second half of the year will help decide whether Connor Williams is part of the solution for the Seahawks offensive line or whether they have to go back to the well again, at that position. So that's, to me, a really key item here that you got to make a decision about relative to Connor Williams. This is a guy that in prior years has flashed all-pro potential at the center position. Again, he is coming off injury. He's got to figure out the snap situation clearly. And you got to know where he's going to fit for your team. So I think for me, he is one of the 10 most important players in the second half of the year. And if he steps forward and he makes, increasingly valuable contributions, then I think this is a guy you want to re-sign and, give some stability to that offensive line going forward. Who else? We have 7 of our 10 selected. The guys that we have not picked that are still on the list: JSN, Derek Hall, Kenneth Walker, Charles Cross, Reek Woolen, Julian Love, and Boye Mafe. So I feel like you got to throw on both of the edge rushers. I think Derek Hall and Boye Mafe, for me, those are guys that... Let me think about this for a second. I feel like I've already seen what I need to see from Derek Hall in his second year. Yes, I would love to see more. But if he had a mediocre second half of the year, I don't think that changes much for the Seahawks. If he has a standout second half of the year, it could. That's why my mind initially went there. And it's also just important position for the Seahawks. I don't think the Seahawks are going to go to the well for an edge rusher or something like that. I think they feel good about their edge rush group. So in that sense, it almost doesn't matter from a roster building standpoint how Derek Hall and Boye Mafe play the second half of the year. Boye Mafe will be entering the final year of his rookie deal next year. They do not have a 5th-year option. He was a second-round pick. Is there a situation where they would not re-sign him or extend him? I don't know. I mean, he's shown so much that would be surprising to me. If he just jumps off the page and just finishes as a super dominant pass rusher, that would be a big deal. between the two of them, Boye Mafe is a more important second half of the year than Derek Hall. Honestly, either one of them stepping forward at edge rush would be a big deal. Like, for much of the year, Derek Hall and Jared Verse were essentially the same player. Jared Verse has taken a huge step forward. If Derek Hall could take that kind of step forward, yeah, that would be a really, really big deal. So let me, before I anoint either of those to the 10, let me think about these other position and players. Charles Cross for me has already had a year that's good enough. Like he ranks as the 5th highest graded tackle in all of football. He's the 5th highest graded run blocker at tackle in all of football. He's been very consistent as a pass protector all year. He's 24 years old. Yes, I think he could do some things the rest of the year that would be important. I don't know that there's anything he could do that would change your plans the rest of the year. That's why I have some hesitation about including him on the most important for the second half of the year, because I think he's already in the first half of the year answered a lot of the questions you had about Charles Cross. Reek Woolen. He will be entering the final year of his deal. He's 25 years old. He's already made a Pro Bowl. He's kind of public enemy number one after last week's loss and some of the mistakes he made. I understand people feel this way. I don't feel that way, for what it's worth. I thought the interception he had was fantastic. I thought he had a couple other really great plays against the Rams. I think that Reek Woolen has been one of the better cornerbacks in football from a coverage perspective all year. You will have some decisions to make, though. Is he the kind of player that Mike Macdonald wants on the team? Does he have the mentality that you want on the team? Does he play with the physicality that you want on the team? So for me, I'm going to tell you that Reek Woolen, his second half of the year, is one of the 10 most important. I'm putting him on the list. Mark it down, because I do think there are some decisions to be made around Reek Woolen. I think that he has an opportunity to finish the year super strong and answer all questions. He has answered some questions in the first half of the year. He has been a more physical player. He's been a better tackler. He's been better in support of the run. He has been really solid in coverage. And so I'm curious. I'm going to go check this and see where things are, see if things have changed at all. But if we look at run defense grades for cornerbacks, would it surprise you to hear that Devin Witherspoon is number 1 in the NFL among cornerbacks in run defense grade? He has an 86.2 run defense grade. Surprised me. I didn't know it was that high. So he's above Jalen Ramsey, Trent McDuffie, AJ Terrell, Pat Surtain. So there's Devin Witherspoon, at least from a run defense grade, being number 1. Where do you think Reek Woolen ranks? Curious where people think he ranks. The answer is he ranks 34th. 34th out of 52 qualifying cornerbacks. So bottom half, and I think some of this is he has had some, his last 2 games were his worst graded run defense grades of the season. So he has fallen off. If I just looked at the first 4 weeks, he was in the top 20 for sure, maybe even in the top 10. So he's fallen off a little bit, but he's got a relatively acceptable grade. He's got a 59.2 grade, which is a league average grade for run defense. How does that compare to last year? He was a 37.3 graded run defender last year. The year before that, he was 47.8. So I just don't think there's any question that Reek Woolen has taken a step forward in some of the places where he was not great. He is still not a good tackler. He's improved as a tackler, but he's still not a good tackler. And that's just part of what you get. But from a coverage perspective, I think that he is still one of the better cornerbacks in football from a coverage perspective. He gets some penalties, which is a challenge, but I still think this guy is an excellent cover corner. So that's for me makes Riq Woolen one of the 10 for sure. And I disagree with anyone saying his coverage stats are not good. There's a lot of the metrics from a separation standpoint, from a press coverage standpoint, from a yards against in coverage standpoint. He has been a very good corner most of the year. Did not have like some plays against the Rams that certainly he'd want back, but I think Riq Woolen is definitely one of the better cover corners in football. So that gets us up to 8 players. We have 2 spots left. Kenneth Walker, to me, the positional value is low. He will be entering the last year of his deal. He's 24 years old. I don't know if he has a huge back half of the year or he has a bad back half of the year. Does that really change much? I don't think it does. I think he goes into his final year of his deal. I don't know if the Seahawks try to extend him or not. They might just let him play it out. I don't know. Like, I'm not sure that he's just important enough to be in the 10 most important the second half. JSN, 22 years old. You know, I could make the case that he's important. He has 3 years of club control left. I could make the case he is because of the DK Metcalf decision. If JSN can step forward enough that you feel like you don't need to pay DK Metcalf and you can go back to the well and draft at the receiver position, there is a world where JSN blows up so much that it changes your calculus with DK Metcalf. So that's an argument for him. I've talked to you about Derek Hall and Boye Mafe. I think there's strong arguments for them. And then Julian Love, you just signed him to an extension. I just don't think I can make, with a positional value being low, I don't think there's a case I can make that if he plays really well or really poorly the last half of the year, it could have some effect, but you just extended him. So I don't think that there's a case to be made that Julian Love's one of the 10 most important in the back half of the year. So what does that leave us with? I think it leaves us with, we've got JSN, Derek Hall, Boye Mafe. I really think it's down to those 3 guys for the final 2 spots, I should say, on the top 10 list. Curious where you guys are on this. I think one of them has to be JSN. I admit I didn't before I started this. I was kind of like, nah, he's not on the list. You know, he's fine. You know what you got. But I do, with this connection to how it could impact your decision around DK Metcalf, around how you draft, how important receiver is on your your draft priority. I think JSN's back half of the year is one of the 10 most important for the Seahawks. So I'm going to put him on the list. That really whittles it down to Derek Hall or Boye Mafe for the final spot. And, you know, Boye Mafe's got only 1 year left on his deal. Derek Hall's got 2. So I'm going to say Boye Mafe is the final of the 10 players that are the most important for the second half of this year. So let's go through the names again. Byron Murphy, Devin Witherspoon, Ernest Jones, Abe Lucas, DK Metcalf, Geno Smith, Connor Williams. I did this out of order. Shoot. Let me do it in order. Byron Murphy, JSN, Devin Witherspoon, Riq Woolen, Ernest Jones, Abe Lucas, Boye Mafe, DK Metcalf, Connor Williams, and Geno Smith. The guys that I left off the list are Derek Hall, Kenneth Walker, Charles Cross, and Julian Love. Of the guys I left off, the only 2 that give me a little bit of pause are Derek Hall and Charles Cross. but I don't think I would trade out anybody for either one of those guys. I think I feel pretty good about that list. I'm curious where you guys are and if anyone else feels like there's other players that should be on this list or different folks. I see a question saying, Leonard Williams has been great, but he's already paid, so he's not part of this. Yeah. I don't think Leonard Williams playing great or playing medium or playing poorly is going to change your decision about whether he's around or your roster construction. So I think he's around either way. And let me just see if anyone else has got. Someone said Uchenna Nwosu. I think Uchenna Nwosu could be on this list. The reason, I don't know when he's going to be back. They've been very vague about that. And so I'm just not totally clear. But I also am not sure that there's anything he could do one way or another that's going to change your calculus for him as well. So, yeah, I just don't think he makes this list. Someone mentioned Cody White. I think that's an interesting name, and he could change a little bit. The reality is Cody White's not going to be important enough to have huge ripple effects on your roster calculation. So he could maybe affect Jake Bobo. I don't think he's going to really affect Tyler Lockett, which is what Tommy was suggesting here. I think Tyler Lockett's probably, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with Tyler. I would guess it's his last year, but who knows? We'll see how things fall the rest of the way. I don't think his situation is going to make or break things one way or another. So yeah, I think those are the 10 players I've got. Tyrell Dodson is a name I see there. Certainly thought about putting Tyrell Dodson or Tyrese Knight in this list. I would be surprised if they're going to sign Ernest Jones. I would be surprised if they then also sign Tyrell Dodson. I like T-Dot a lot, more than most fans, that's for sure. But with Tyrese Knight sitting there behind him and them, he's already gotten some playing time and he's shown some signs. I think they would go for younger, cheaper at that position as opposed to free agency. If Tyrell Dodson plays well the rest of the year and he can be had for a cheap deal, then sure. But I think it's more likely that they would want Tyrese Knight to step in. That's my guess. So we'll see. We'll see. But again, here's the final list for folks that are just joining. Byron Murphy, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Devin Witherspoon, Reek Woolen, Ernest Jones, Abe Lucas, Boye Mafe, DK Metcalf, Connor Williams, and Geno Smith. Those are my 10. I'd remind folks, if you haven't already, head on over to ftnfantasy.com. Sign up using promo code HBAM and get you 15% off the best NFL data insights engine. Less than $8 a month if you use that promo code. I am already a subscriber. I look at it all the time for DVOA, for a bunch of other things. Really, really great data on that site. And so head on over to FTN Fantasy to support them and have a little fun. I would also say, if you have not gone to Pagliacci lately, it is a great time to do it. Pagliacci, if you sign up at hello.pagliacci.com/hawk-blogger, you will get access to the best deals on Pagliacci pizza, on Pagliacci gelato. They've got the autumn harvest pizza going right now, which is delicata squash with Brussels sprouts, mozzarella, and Parmesan with roasted garlic oil. It's just amazing, amazing food. And they've got a caramel apple crumble gelato going on right now that is delicious. So head over to Pagliacci Pizza if you haven't already. You will not regret it. And of course, as I mentioned before, JK Boots, use code HawkBlogger, gets you 10% off all your purchases at JK Boots. Spokane-based company, Washington-based company. These are lifetime boots for people that, unless you're a construction worker and you're on your feet all day, they're probably not lifetime then. But if you're like me, you can probably wear one pair of these boots forever. Handmade. They take 6 weeks to make each boot. It's just gorgeous, gorgeous craftsmanship on these things. And you also, using that code, get access to a chance to win a pair of Seahawks themed boots. You also help to contribute to Wildland Firefighters Foundation. If we get 4 more sales, we will be able to give another pair of boots to a wildland firefighter to keep our Northwest forest safe. All right, use code HawkBlogger over at JK Boots. All right, folks, I'm going to head out and get a hike in today. Finn and I are going to go for a hike, get out in the sun, enjoy the day. I hope all of you do as well. Until tomorrow, when we'll have our Mike Sandoz show back, I wish you all the best. I am Brian Emhauser, and this has been another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. Take care, y'all.